I was looking online at some camping stoves and they seemed a little bit expensive and not good enough for what I wanted to do, so I decided to have a little crack at making one. So this is what I'm thinking. I've got a little windshield for a gas burner, and the most obvious way to use this would simply be something like this. Now, it's considerably stronger. So this will be quite a big firebox. You can obviously do a decent bit of barbecuing on it. There's no grate at the bottom, so it will scorch the earth. So I'm going to make a little rocket stove, which will be more convenient and use less fuel. A slightly more clever idea I had was to make a sort of rocket stove. So something like this. So I'll need a grate at the bottom, down here, 2 in fact, and then this top surface here should be big enough to rest, you know, a saucepan or something on. That's the way it's sitting now. Set it upright. And these two fold together, like so, forming our inner cavity with our grate at the bottom. So I utilise another little staple nail there, just to hold the two pieces together, so it'll take a bit of pressure. I think it definitely needs it. So the fire worked quite well, but unfortunately this is aluminium, and as I should have, as I slightly suspected, it did just burn through, so it won't stand up to heavy use. But I have come up with another idea, which will utilise this, which is really heavy steel. So I'll see what I can capture. Around the edges. And it packs down to that. It's actually quite heavy and relatively large, but it is a decent campfire. So the grating's a bit of a hatchet job. That's because I skipped ahead, or well, that's because I tried to make small holes and then it was all a bit too tight, and then I had to widen them, which makes it look rougher. So I've had to drill the holes first and then put the slots in. Well, drill the right size of holes first, then it would have been fine. But as is, it'll do. So right now it's a bit floppity, but it still holds together. But if I put in some clips, these are just made from staple nails rather. This last one is fairly snug. Probably should have done this one first. Now, it's considerably stronger. A slightly more clever idea I had was to make a sort of rocket stove. On the inside, I've marked up some bits and pieces. So the grate will be 2 grates, 1 square on this side, 1 square on this side. Got your air holes beneath, and then also some air holes on the way up, and then 2 holes for feeding in the material. You can also control the air supply to this, I hope anyway, by adjusting these. So whenever this gets closed down, it should really dampen the air supply in, cut down the draft. So you should be able to control the air supply and thereby the heat. I've made these little grates, 2 of them, and they're going to form the grate at the bottom of the rocket stove, ideally. So they slip in. One side hinges in and the other side slips in. And then they do manage to get a relatively secure mounting. The problem is remembering which way around they go. So doing this in the dark might be a bit more tricky, especially if it's the first time. So we extend one side each. Oh, that side's more or less falling into place. And then that hinges around. This hinges around and pops in. No effort. Easy peasy. First time every time. There we go. So it's a relatively snug fit, relatively strong. That's the way it's sitting now. Sit upright. And these two fold together, like so, forming our inner cavity with our grate at the bottom. We can open this up a little bit, which would allow some extra air in. You see the two grates are slightly apart, just making a finer grate. I had to make these holes here to let the little piece, to let some of the jutting out studs come through, so we can get a tighter and more airtight seal on the sides here. And that's what it looks like from the top. So this is it with the grate set in place, and you can see the air holes are drilled underneath to let the air in to heat up the coals, and then these are the holes above to allow the flames to burn, and then these two big holes, which look a bit like eyes, they are for feeding in the small sticks and so on to keep it flaring up. So the proof of the pudding will be in the cooking. Just a quick light. There we go, good sound. So I utilised another little staple nail there, just to hold the two pieces together. So it'll take a bit of pressure. I think it definitely needs it. This initial stage of the burn, you're trying to build up your coals at the bottom, and then once that's done, pieces of timber like this can feed down into the centre and keep the flames going. I may take a little bit off the edge just to finish it off so they sit in better. It's a bit of an unfair test because this is pine which has been dried out inside, but it should work pretty well with things like pine branches you'd pick up on your travels. So the fire worked quite well, but unfortunately this is aluminium, and as I slightly suspected, it did just burn through, so it won't stand up to heavy use. But I have come up with another idea which will utilise this, which is really heavy steel, so I'll see what I can capture. So I cut up the heavy oven tray with a pair of bolt cutters, and I made this. So 4 pieces, and just using some coat hanger I made some hinges at the bottom and at the top. To stop them sliding down, I put in a little catch. And on either side I've got a hook and kind of an eye, if you want to put it like that. On the bottom there's a little loop, and that fits in the bottom here. So in theory there's two ways it can be used. Either as a triangle, like that, which would be sort of closer to the small size of a rocket stove, or a square, which would be better for a campfire. So it's about, it's big enough. Good. And the bits that really hold it together are these. Let's put that in first. Little hook. And these would actually, you could probably just use tent pegs. It's easy as anything. So hook it round like so. Oh, let's try it from the other side. And then this makes it rigid. That's better. So then you make something which is pretty sturdy. There's a good little firebox, and then you can use your windbreak. Around the edges. And it packs down to that. It's actually quite heavy and relatively large, but it is a decent campfire. Thanks, Dark. Alright, find the middle and then form something that looks like this. Nope. Like this. So it's comprised of 6 pieces. It's kind of a hexagon, but these two sides are parallel, and these two sides are more acute angles. So, and then this can fold around like that. So you could have some sort of draft control on that side, as with here. And then you can also obviously feed your fuel in like that. I haven't quite decided what would be the best thing to do with this yet. Something else. Another iteration, we'll be able to feed that through. And use this in some way as possibly a wind shield or a wind director, or even to let some of the heat out and create quite a lot of light reflecting. So I don't know. I'm thinking the rocket stove and the large fire could work for now.